Camilla was already sitting in that floral armchair before Harry even stepped through the gate. That single detail tells you everything you need to know about what happened on July 10th at Highgrove. Not the reunion, not the kids, not the hug between a father and son who hadn't shared a room in more than 4 years. It was the chair. Positioned perfectly by the tall window, angled so she could see the door and the fireplace, close enough to catch every quiet word. Picture it. Nobody assigned her that seat. No name card, no instructions. But when Harry walked in carrying his son, Camilla was already there, handbag on the side table, jacket folded neatly, and she didn't stand up. She had arrived early from Ray Mill House, her car crunching on the gravel while the housekeeper was still setting out flowers. Staff saw her settle in 20 full minutes before Harry's car turned onto the estate. She picked her teacup, adjusted the cushion, crossed her ankles, and waited like someone who belonged exactly where she sat. But here's where it gets heavy. If you're Harry, you've spent 4 years away from your dad. You've written a book calling this woman dangerous, the wicked stepmother who leaked private talks to the press. Now you're walking into what you hoped would be a private moment with your father, your children by your side. Archie asking innocent questions about a garden he's never seen. Lilibet holding your hand, eyes wide at ceilings she doesn't recognize. Your heart's pounding, your mouth dry. You push open the door, and there she is, watching. She didn't greet the kids. Didn't kneel or smile or say their names. She stayed seated, hands folded, like an official observer at a formal procedure. Harry's shoulders tightened. Charles stepped forward for that long-awaited embrace, pulling his son close, hand on the back of his head the way he might have when Harry was little. For a second, years of distance melted. But even in that hug, Harry could see past his father's shoulder. The chair was still occupied. The witness hadn't moved. And that's how power really works in these old palace walls. No memos, no signed orders. It's quieter than that. You sit in the room. You stay in the room. If nobody asks you to leave, then you belong there. Presence becomes policy. Precedent becomes stronger than any rule. Camilla mastered this long ago, navigating decades of rejection, public hate, and the ghost of Diana in every corner. Think back to February 2024, when Harry rushed to London after Charles's cancer news. That visit lasted barely half an hour, and guess who was positioned in the room again? Present, watching, like a bookmark no one could remove. No private father-son talk. The pattern was already set. But this time at Highgrove, it went deeper. Before Harry even arrived, Camilla had sent a clear message through intermediaries to Meghan back in Montecito. The door, she said, was closed forever. Not narrowing, not maybe someday. Closed. And she delivered it as her own verdict, in the name of the crown, without Charles contradicting it. Imagine receiving that call. You're Meghan, thousands of miles away, house quiet, kids with their dad on the other side of the world. The woman your husband accused of betrayal just set the terms. The reunion was never a fresh start. It was supervised from the beginning. Either Charles let her speak for him, or she spoke anyway and he didn't stop her. Either way, the door belonged to Camilla now. What would that do to you? Follow the sequence, because it reveals everything. First, she took physical control by claiming the chair. Second, she set the conditions ahead of time. Third, and this is the part that chills you, the story got reframed for the world. Just days later, royal biographer Sally Bedell Smith described Harry as the volatile younger son and Camilla simply as a witness, like she was doing some noble civic duty. The leaker became the recorder. The person accused of betrayal was now the necessary observer. Once you label someone a witness, two things happen. The one being watched looks dangerous, and the watcher looks essential. From there, every future meeting would need supervision. No private talks, not at holidays, not on birthdays, not even a phone call without ears listening. A chair becomes a position. A position becomes a lock on every door. And deeper still, it threatens the story itself. Because the witness doesn't just see what happens. She shapes what gets remembered. Her version becomes the official one. Harry lost the simple right to sit alone with his father, not by any big decree, but by furniture and quiet presence. The conversation Diana would have fought for, that private hour between father and son, was taken. And it was taken by the same woman Diana once called the third person in her marriage. The symmetry hits hard. Decades later, that third person sat watching Diana's son introduce his own children to their grandfather. In the room, the kids brought lightness. Archie chattered about the garden, voice full of wonder. Lilibet reached toward the paintings, shoes soft on the floor. Charles tried, kneeling despite the ache in his knees, voice warm as he reached for them. You could see the grandfather underneath the crown, wanting this connection. But every word, every glance, every vulnerable moment was catalogued by the woman Harry once called the enemy of his mother's happiness. This wasn't a family reunion. It was a supervised visit in a beautiful drawing room that suddenly felt smaller. Yet something unplanned happened. Charles stood up, gently set Lilibet down, and without a word to anyone, walked across the room and opened the front door himself. No staff, no announcement. Just a father stepping outside with his son. Camilla stayed in her chair, uninvited. For those few minutes on the gravel drive, with the smell of cut grass and summer air, they walked alone. A wood pigeon called from the trees. It wasn't some grand victory. It was a scrap of privacy that the King of England had to steal from his own household. But here's the moral twist that changes how you see all of it. Camilla had choices over those 4 years. Harry had attacked her publicly in his book, called her dangerous, made it permanent. She had every right to feel hurt, to want distance. She could have stepped back for one afternoon, let Charles have that time. She could have said, "This one is yours." Instead, she chose control. She turned the accusation into a gatehouse. Every future meeting now passes through her. She won the room. She became the permanent presence, the one who sets terms and shapes the record. But the price showed in that walk to the car. A 77-year-old man rising from his chair, crossing the floor, opening the door because he couldn't speak freely in front of his wife. The price is knowing that even a king must steal moments to talk to his own son without witnesses. Once you see it, the chair doesn't look like protection. It looks like what it truly became. Harry's children played in the garden that day. Small, ordinary memories, questions about plants, fingers on picture frames. Those are the moments Charles will hold on to when the crown feels heaviest. He earned them by standing up. Whether he can keep earning them, whether that chair stays occupied or someone finally moves it, that's the next chapter waiting to be written. The warning reached Meghan before the reunion even began. The terms were set. The chair was taken. Every detail points the same direction. The woman accused of leaking now controls the room. The supposed villain from the memoir became the official witness. And in that world of heavy curtains and weighed words, a witness doesn't just watch. She decides what was seen. She decides the record. And whoever holds the record holds the power. Outside, as Harry's car rolled down the drive, gravel popping under the tires, Charles stood in the doorway and raised one hand. Not quite a wave. The armchair behind him still held the shape of the hour it had claimed. And the afternoon light faded across the empty seat.